Hi, I'm Dale, and if any of you are like me and have teachers in your lives, especially kindergarten through third grade, they probably know who Orton Gillingham is, and they probably know what this is. It's called a blending board. A blending board is used where you can put cards on this. There might be a letter, and a letter, and it helps the kids through phonics learn how to say words. That's what a blending board is. My wife is a teacher, and so I'm making her this blending board that she can use. You could also use this if you don't have a teacher. Easily make it maybe this part here, the back could be taller, and now it becomes something to clip on recipes in the kitchen while you're cooking dinner. But when I was looking at getting one of these for my wife, she said she wanted one. I went online to look, and some of these things sell for as much as $50. I found some as low as $40. Way too much for what you're getting. So I decided to make her one. I wanted to make it a little nice with a plexiglass background. I did scratch it some, you know, oh well, I might come back and fix it later, I'm not sure. But this was made just with scraps in the garage that I had, so it cost me nothing. If I was to go out and buy it, it probably would have been, I don't know, $8 to buy. So please don't go out and buy one of these for $40, $50 when truly this is about as simple as a project you can actually have. Even if you don't want to use plexiglass, if you just want to put a small wood back to it, simple, simple, simple. I even want to just, you know, I don't even know if I want to call it the extra yard or the extra mile by rounding off the edges. You know, I didn't have to do that. This truly is one of the most simple projects you're going to be able to do, and you'll be able to do it in just a couple of hours. So with that, I'll show you how I made this. I found a piece of scrap wood in my garage. I'm not sure what kind of wood it is, but it looked pretty good. It's about 18 inches long and about 3.5 inches wide, which is perfect for what I want to do. The first thing I did was I got my router bit and I rounded over all the edges that is going to be on the top. You don't have to do this, but it does make it for a nice finish. On the first one of these I built, I made the mistake of rounding off the edges last, which ended up chipping my dado cuts. I didn't like that, so this time I learned and I rounded off first. No measuring even needed yet. Just take a 1/4 inch dado bit, put it in about 1 inch to 1.25 inches from the edge, go up about 1/4 inch, and simply cut a dado through the length of the board. This is simply to keep the cards from sliding off. I like to make just a small light pencil shape to show the direction of the blade for the next cut. It's not really showing the angle, just the direction so I don't screw up. Okay, so I hit a snag. The snag is my old skill saw, table saw, 20-year-old, I think has finally broke. This little knob here is what I would usually use to twist to angle my blade, and as soon as I twisted it, it broke. I got this piece here that came off, the handle came off, the gears completely broke in half. I can get the other piece off the ground down here. Here's the other piece of the gear that broke off. So at this point, I don't really have any way to angle my blade to make the cut that will hold the back, the plexiglass back. So I'm going to have to think a little bit on how to get this angled cut, because I certainly don't want to go buy a new table saw. Okay, here's my solution. I went ahead and I cut a strip of wood. It's 3/4 inches tall, and it's thin enough to where it gets out of the way of the work that I'm going to slide through it and the blade. And so now what I'll do is I'll just take the wood and I'll lean it up on top of that and against the fence. It'll be at the angle that I want and come straight through like that. And that's going to give me my angle. It's certainly not the best idea in the world, I guess, but it should work. And it's better than me running out and buying a new table saw now, which I do not have the money for. So I have no idea what angle that is. I'm guessing that it's probably about a 15 degree. I normally like to cut these about 20 degrees. I think that's a nice slope to the back, but you know what, this is just going to have to work. Still no tape measure even brought out. All I do is I raise the blade to about halfway through the piece of wood, the base, and I run it through. With the wood up against my clamped on wood strip, it gives me the correct angle that I want, or at least close to it. I did measure this time. I cut the plexiglass at about 5.5 inches. Notice that I do keep my guards on during my videos. I have had an accident on my table saw where I cut my thumb and needed some stitches. Luckily kept my thumb, but that's why I really keep my guards on my tools as much as I can. I take a small piece of scrap wood that I had lying around the garage, just trace out a rounded corner on it, nothing exact, just hand drawn. I clamp my belt sander to my bench and simply sand it off until I get that rounded corner that I want. I'll use this as a template to round off the edges of the plexiglass. To soften up the sharp edges of the plexiglass, I use the template I just created by taping it to each corner of the plexiglass and use my edging bit to smooth out and round off the corners. I also tape some newspaper to my routing table just to try to help from keeping the plexiglass from scratching. Make sure that you tape the template on good and tight to the plexiglass so it doesn't move. You may notice on my last cut it moved a little bit and it took a little bit of extra work at the end. And that's really all there is to it. I've got the rounded edges now that are nice and smooth so they won't cut anybody. I do got to clean this up a whole lot. Obviously got a lot of dust. Might want to try to buff out a couple scratches I put in there, but it's nice and smooth around the edges so no one's going to cut themselves. It'll slide into this slot just perfect. Their cards will be able to sit right up on here real nice. The dadu through here will be able to hold the cards from slipping off. And if you don't have a router, you don't really need to use this dadu right here. Instead, what you can do is just cut a thin, real thin, maybe even 1/8 of an inch tall piece of wood and glue it across so that it's a ridge so that the cards will be able to stop against it. That'll work just fine. Also, you don't need to use plexiglass. You could use just a piece of wood. You could actually even take 2 pieces of wood, just butt them up like this and slant them a bit, and that would work fine. But I wanted something that they would be able to easily take apart, store very flat on a shelf somewhere to get out of the way, because teachers don't have a lot of room. But I think it came out good. One other thing about cutting and just cutting and routering, any kind of cutting on plexiglass, I don't know for a fact, but I'm going to guess that the particles that it throws up in the air is probably not good. So you really want to have yourself a good respirator so that you're not breathing in any of the particles or any of the fumes that are created from cutting this plexiglass. Really, you should use it when you're cutting wood also, but you could use just a normal doctor's mask when you're cutting wood, because that'll work fine. But I was a little bit more worried about cutting this, so I used a little nicer air mask so that I wouldn't be breathing in these fumes. The only thing that I have left here is to finish it. I was originally thinking I was going to paint it black, but I'm not even sure what kind of wood this is. It was just found in the garage. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put I'm going to sand it down real nice, nice and smooth. And I'm going to probably just put a couple of coats of poly on it. I really like the look of wood, not stained. I really like the light wood, just with poly on it. And you know, this doesn't look too bad. So I think I'll like that. I'll just put some poly on it and maybe 3 coats of it, sand in between, and I'll be done. But right now, I think it's going to work really nice for my wife. Hope she likes it. E, V. E, N, D, end. See you next time.